Okay, first, Divakar, we'll just take your question that you put in the comments, and then
Yeah,
we'll start with the other questions in the Q&A. Um,
sure.
so, okay, your question basically is, I have one page. I have a few pages on my website which have list of colleges, say a list of MBA colleges in India, then another page with list of engineering colleges, and then another page with list of law colleges. And then you're saying, when someone uses the internal search page, if they're typing MBA colleges, and then they get a search result which links to this MBA lists page. But the thing is, this will not be considered as duplicate content, right?
Okay,
Because
sorry.
on one side it's just a list of search results, and it's just a snippet. It's not the full content. It helps your users navigate your website. That's totally fine. There's no reason why Google should consider both of them as duplicate content. Uh, and ideally, when someone searches for MBA colleges, we obviously like to pick the actual article only in cases where, say, we are not able to crawl the actual article or there's some issue. Maybe the search results page may rank higher, but generally we try and pick the original content page rather than a search results page for while ranking. Does that answer your
Okay,
question?
so uh, no, not really, because uh, see, there is, as I said, that there is a college listing page, and so say the list college in a certain order, which could probably be based on popularity or ranking of colleges. And then if similarly the user goes to this site search tool, and then he types in a similar keyword, of course my algo is not as smart as Google, which could directly link, take the guy to the college listing page. So we generate a new page with a separate URL,
Okay.
and then we also again push down a list of say 30, 40 colleges there. So then what
But
happens is
so if
there
I
are
if
two
I'm
separate
understanding
colleges which,
correctly, there can be different results in both pages, right? It's not the same results.
yes, there could be different results, and the order of those results could also be different, and hence the content may slightly vary. So while both of the pages may essentially talk about, say, management colleges in India, but one of those listed could be sorted in a very different way with the vis-a-vis the other page, and hence the content to Google would look actually different, right? So, but from a user's standpoint, you can always use filters and the sort tools to arrive at a similar list. And hence, I would not want Google to, compete, make both of these pages compete with each other. And that is what is exactly happening. And both of these pages, both of these sections get us significant traffic to my site. So both of these pages contribute, 20% of my site's traffic individually. So I can't afford to have a redirection kill one of these and say, okay, I'll have a redirection to either one of these. So that's my problem.
Okay. First things first. One, it's not duplicate content because the results are different, right? And it's sort of like when someone searches for, like, when you have the list of MBA colleges, you have, say, the 20 colleges in, sorry, 20 listings in that MBA colleges page. And in the site search, you may again have, say, another 20, list of colleges, but they need not necessarily be, in the same order, and the colleges could differ also, right? So the content is not necessarily the same, but one, Google may not necessarily, like, pick one over the other. It depends upon what the user is searching. So sometimes the search results page may be more relevant than the actual college listing page. It depends upon the user's query. And honestly, since there's no duplicate content, I don't think you should worry about one page ranking against the other, because these two are different pages, right? So
These two are different pages, but see, if Google was, giving all the juice to one page, it would probably have had a higher page rank, and therefore I could have got a better ranking. So on pages where, so that's the idea.
okay, so that's the thing. So two pages have different content, we don't want to consider both of those pages as the same page. So if two pages have different content, we try and pick, for relevant queries, we may show both pages or just one of those two pages. But if they have the same content, then what you're saying makes sense. We'll try and pick one page out of those two and like add all signals only to that canonical page that we pick. But if the content is different, obviously the ranking factors for both pages will be different, and the like, for both pages may rank differently for different queries. So thing is, both pages are different, right? The content is different.
So
So
only
we
this,
don't want to consider them as the same page.
only the ordering is different. So again, from a look at it from a user's perspective, only the order is different, which he can always reach. Using the filter or a sort tool, he can use. Reach at exactly the same content. Only the list of colleges and the order that they appear is different. So it's just like an e-com site wherein probably where one page you've listed your products by size and the other page you've listed your products by color, and hence, but essentially listing the same products, right? So from a user standpoint, the
One thing you
pages are
can
not
do
different.
is you can actually use robots file to block the search results pages if you would like to. I wouldn't suggest canonical because they are not the same content, but you can use robots file to block the search results pages from showing up in Google search, so that every time we pick content from your page, we'll pick content directly from the lists page that you mentioned, and we will not crawl the search results pages.
But I risk losing that 20% traffic which I'm getting on those pages currently, right?
Again, so if Google is searching, if someone searches for MBA colleges in India, and if, like you're saying, once your search results pages show up and another time your MBA college lists show up, now because the search results page is not there and your MBA college listing page is relevant, there's no reason why we shouldn't pick that up if there are no other better results.
Okay.
Yeah, so if I understood your problem correctly, Diwakar, you're saying basically the two pages that you have, one dynamically generated and one kind of a static page, but these pages have different content, right?
No, they have the same content. It's like uh, say from Naukri.com when you're searching job listings or whatever. So on one he
Right.
has a curated list of say MBA
Yeah.
colleges.
So Diwakar, do they have same content or different content? Because I just heard you said they have different content, and then do they
So
have
they
same
will.
content or different content?
So they will essentially have the same list of colleges, but ordered differently.
Okay, so it is just the order that is different, but the content is the same.
80% of it would be the same.
Okay, what is this 20% different thing?
So as I said, since the order could different, or so on a page I'm showing say 10 results. Okay. Now if I'm say sorting it by popularity, the first 10 results could be slightly different when I sort them on say location.
Okay, so
right?
you have independent URLs for all these various sorts,
Yes.
sorted content.
Sorry.
So for all the different types of sorting that a person can do, a user can do on your site, you have individual pages for all these different sorts. So for example, are you with us, Diwakar? Diwakar? I think he lost his connection.
Yeah. No, I think what's happening here is it's just each so there's a list of MBA colleges and each college listing has its own URL. But the list of MBA colleges has like 20 URLs on one page. But when someone's searching for MBA colleges using the search function, pretty much the same 20 colleges are showing up. It's just in a different order.
Yeah, but he's saying there is 20% different content. I wanted to know if he has individual pages for. So, for example, if the items are more than 20, and then there are like 500, and then if people are sorting does he has like different individual pages for all these sorts and stuff? Let us get back to his question when he's back.
All right. So hi Ramesh. Hi Neeraj.
Hi Sayed, hi Ashish.
Yeah, hi Sayed.
Hey.
Hi Ashish.
So okay, we'll just start taking Q&A questions, and if you have any live questions, please interrupt us. So okay, the first question is what is the advantage and disadvantage of having paginations? If I set up canonical on component pages, will Google still rank crawl links from other component pages? So first things first, you can have canonical and so rel prev and rel next on all on those pages also. But the thing is, you like say you have three pages, page 1, page 2, page 3. You will have three rel canonicals on each page pointing to that page itself. On page 1 you will have rel canonical saying the canonical version is page 1, and on page 2 you will have rel canonical saying canonical version is page 2, right? And on the page 1 you will have a rel next, on page 2 you will have a rel prev and rel next, and on page 3 you will just have a rel prev. So as long as you have all these rel prev and rel next links, we will consider all these three component pages, and we will link crawl all the content and links on all these three pages, and we'll consider them as one page of one article of sorts, right? But
Hey guys, I
oh, sorry. Divakar, I'm just finishing answering one question from Ramesh. I'll get back to you once that's done. Sorry. Um, okay, so you have, as long as you have all the three component pages with rel prevs and rel next, we'll understand that. So there's no reason why we shouldn't, crawl links from other component pages. Another thing is, if you have session IDs or other pages that come under page 2, like say you have page example.com slash abc article slash page 2, and if you have then after page 2 you have some session id 1 2 3, session id 4 5 6, and some extra pages, as long as you have the canonical pointing to page 2, those session IDs will be removed. We'll just pick just that page 2 as the canonical version. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Basically, my question was like, for example, I'm just going for this view all option. That's I'm just wanted one page to be indexed, and my all other component pages pointing canonical to my parent page. So my question is like, if I'm having these component pages, I'm having some kind of content over this particular pages, like the listing kind of things. So will Google crawl these particular links from the component pages, or is it like kind of ignore that altogether? Like I mean, I'm pointing canonical from my component to the parent, but
Yeah.
I have the links to on my component pages as well.
Right. So basically, your question is if you have a view all page and then these individual paginated pages, and then you have a canonical to the view all page, right? Would the links on these sub pages or paginated pages will also be crawled? So they could be links to other pages or whatever which are not there on your view all page. That's your question, right? Yeah, we would definitely, as long as those paginated pages are crawlable by Googlebot, we will definitely see the content of that page, and then we will get to the links, get to the pages that are linked to from those pages. We may not necessarily index all the paginated pages if you have a canonical to the view all page, but we will definitely see the links that are pointing to other pages on those pages, and we'll crawl those links.
Or that would be a good thing. Yeah,
But
sure.
by the way, so ideally, if you have links on your component pages and you have a view all page, shouldn't those links also be on the view all page? Why?
Yeah. So the thing is like we have this kind, you can say the listing pages, and we have the different stories on all each. You can say that we have the page 1, page 2, page 3, and we are just maintaining a category over there.
Okay.
So the thing is like first page is like they're having the latest kind of things, and then the rest of the page is having like an old, you can say the old stories wise. So we have the story of everything. So that is I'm just asking like if I'm having all those things in all together like in the pages wise, and also could put in canonical to my component pages or the paginated pages, so it will affect the crawling of those links or not. So that's the kind of that I want to ask.
Get back to Divakar's question. So yeah, so Divakar, like we just discussed this after you went out. Finally, like what we understood is you have on your list of MBA colleges, you have 20, say, for example, 20 listings, and probably each listing will lead to another product page which has its own URL. Uh, and on the other side, we have a search results page where you can have 20 or more listings, but the order may differ. But if a user selects filters and selects only MBA colleges, then you could pretty much get the same order. But there can be some extra results that differ from the MBA colleges page. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely, bang on.
Okay. One, the thing is, they could, because these are listings pages, technically, and there's a different, you have an internal search page and you have a curated list. We still don't consider these two as the same pages as long as the content is different. Even if, even if there's like two extra listings or something, because it won't match, both of the pages won't match, we won't consider them as the same pages. So we would not, ideally we'd like to rank both those pages. And say if someone's searching for content that's, that's just there in the search results page but not in the MBA page, even if it's just little, and if someone's searching for that content, we'd like to show the search results page because that's more relevant to the user. Does that make sense?
Yes. Now, in case I do wish that the curated page ranks higher, and that is what I believe is a better experience for my user, how can I give signals to Google that you start considering this page to be more important? What are the tools that I can use to give the signals to Google?
Okay, first thing, if you have other pages on your website which have the same content, ideally selecting having a rel canonical link on your curated list is more, it's more, Google lets us, it lets Google know that this is your canonical page and all the other pages that contain the same content are duplicates of this page. uh, but beyond that, I would say there's no other way, because technically these are two different pages. So, and we always prefer ranking content in the order of relevancy. So I think apart from rel canonical, there's not much you can do. Do you have any?
So basically, first of all, I think Divakar, if you have like 80% overlap between two pages, then if you can fix that, you should do that, right? Because it's not good to have a lot of pages with 80% overlap between them and just 20% unique content, right? So that will definitely be confusing for everyone. So if you can separate that, that will be great. Otherwise, you can choose one of those pages that you want to rank and do a canonical on that.
And when you do canonical, we will consider, like, say, if there are links or any other signals that point to the other duplicate pages, we will consider them to the canonical page that you select. So you will not be losing out on ranking or anything per se. But again, so if the content is, even if there's a little bit of different content and it can serve some other users, I would say don't use canonical because they are different pages. But again, like Syed said, it should also, you should also work on your overall site to fix the bigger issue of having a lot of overlapping content between too many pages, like, lots of pages.
Sure. I think that helps. Besides, do you think if I link the curated pages from the dynamically generated search pages, say a link back or a quick link widget from those pages, that is going to signal to Google somehow that this page is also linking back to curated pages, so probably curated pages are more important?
I mean, it may. So, like, if your search results page contains a, I don't know, a footer or something which links to list of MBA top 25 MBA colleges in India, then top 25 law colleges, that's totally fine. Like, it's your site. You can internally, basically, you're telling a user who's searching, who's spending time searching your site for MBA colleges, you're giving them directly a link to your curated information. So that's totally fine, and that is generally a positive signal even for Google, because we will also see that, okay, this is the list of top 25 colleges in this website, and whenever some user searches for that, we'd ideally like to show that, as long as it's the most relevant page that you can find for that particular page. So I'd suggest, like, that's definitely a positive thing, but again, so overall, working on your content, trying to get one page to have unique information rather than having overlapping pages. That's something that we suggest for generally for your site.
Sure, great.
Right.
Thanks,
We'll take the next question. By the way, Neeraj, if you have any questions, please ask them. So we have a lot of questions from Ramesh, so we don't mind taking one. All right. Next question is, we're using internal tracking parameters to understand user behavior. Some of it are UTM parameters and some of them are custom parameters. How does Google consider these links as their clean URLs but with parameters? We have placed canonical on all pages. So Ramesh actually left, but one thing is, even if you have, say, example.com/page1, and you have some session ID parameters or some UTM parameters just to track your users, as long as you have canonical to the main page one URL, Google will pick that page one URL as to show in our search results, and we'll try and not crawl the UTM parameters, because it's a waste on your it'll save some of your resources, and it'll save Google's resources also. So as long as we can identify that all of these are like, one is the canonical URL, and all of these parameters are just your site's internal parameters that you're using to track users, Google understands that, and we try and pick only the canonical version. Okay, let's take the next question. I have a question about backlinks. I'm thinking backlinks must be a reason about websites. Because of this, everybody is spamming too much, or they're buying backlinks. You must change this rule. So Serkan, ideally backlinks are a good way to understand when someone's sort of recommending another website. Of course, there are a lot of, say, spam that's happening around backlinks, and then there's a lot of negative SEO that's happening. But I feel like we do a good job of fighting that. So if you have any specific sites that are spamming, please use our report web spam form to report those. We really do look at those forms and take action on whenever we find someone's violating our guidelines.
One important thing to remember here is that backlinks is just like one of the 200 plus signals that we use, so PageRank basically is one of the many signals that we use to rank pages. So it is not the only thing that we look at. We look at so many more things, and then this is just one component. So it is not as big as you may think. However, it is not something that we can totally ignore as well.
Next question.
Yeah. Yeah, hi, Said.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Ashish, actually, recently we launched around 250 pages in our website. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and in Webmaster Tools, the next day we found that there were almost 500 crawl errors.
Okay.
But when I tried to track them, there was no page live which was shown in Webmaster Tools. And this being a big reason, we quite often have problems that our crawl errors increase in Webmaster Tools. But when we go we do not find any page. Is there any way we can track them, or how to be sure that this is normal thing, we should not be very careful, or we should not be worried because of this? However, this time I just fixed them as mark as fixed.
Okay.
But is there any way we can find out why this kind of notification come to us?
Sure. One thing is sometimes when you add new URLs or when you make a site change, there can be some issue with Google identifying those URLs, and we may sometimes see broken links or something. So we may not be seeing the content in some cases. We may get 404s or like some, in rare cases, if there's some server access issue, we may get 500 errors. But one thing that from your side you can do is, if you see crawl errors, if Google is actually showing the URL for which in Search Console, most times you can see the URL for which we are reporting errors. You can sort of use fetches Google to check if Google is still reporting that URL as error. Right? Fetches Google is a really good method to check how Google is fetching that particular URL. So you can use that to see if there really is an issue or not. Beyond that, I think that's pretty much it. So you can either use the example URLs that we provide when we say something is an error, to check if that's a live URL, or if that's a URL that you've already removed, and it's just old information that Google's projecting. Or if that is not the case, you can put in the new URLs that you have added in Fetches Google, and check how Google is fetching those URLs at this moment. If there's any access issue, or if there's any broken links that leads to 404s or something like that.
Means Google reported 404 page to be used as fetches and fetches Google, and the live page that we have should also be kept in fetches Google bot.
Yeah, you can check both of those. So if we are reporting 404, that generally means we found broken links, or that page is pretty much, we're getting a 404 header response. Or in some cases we're getting a 200 response, but there could be soft 404s where there's no content per se.
Okay.
Ideally, it's not like, you can pretty much submit that URL and the new URLs that you submitted in Fetches Google, and I think there's no specific timeline as such, but in about a day or two, you should be getting the Fetches Google report, which tells you how Google fetched that page. Not even a day.
But this time the 404 pages that were reported in Webmaster Tools were not existing actually. We did not think to launch those pages. Still there was increase in 404 page. So this is why I just was thinking whether I should mark as fix or try to look into it.
Yeah, so like silly things can always happen with regards to 404s, right? Sometimes there could just be some random website generating URLs which are not even existing on your page. And when Google finds those URLs and crawls them, they're from your domain, but they don't exist. So we sort of just find random 404s. So like 404s, you shouldn't really worry about, as long as you can just check some of those 404s and see if it's from your website. If they're not from your website, you don't really need to worry about them. One good way, generally there are few cases where maybe hackers are injecting bad pages on your website, but for 404s, generally that's a very rare case. So again, like I said, Fetches Google is the best way to check how Google is looking at your website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have the question from Sarkan. Sometimes I'm checking backlinks for some pages. They have thousands of backlinks. That's why they're on top. For example, filmy.org is the top website. He's spending 10,000 every month. This is not fair. He has 20,000 backlinks. One thing, we will definitely take a look at this website that you pointed out to see if there's any spam that's happening around backlinks. But generally, some of the top websites have most of the backlinks that they have are pretty legit. So I wouldn't jump to the conclusion that just because he has so many backlinks, all of them are bad. But again, of course, buying backlinks is clearly against our policies, and if that is the case, we will definitely take action on any website, even even if it's done mistakenly, like it's still violating our policies. So if people are buying backlinks, that's completely against our policies, and we'll definitely take action on them. We even take action on our own properties if that is the case. Next question from Ramesh. What could be the reason Google's ranking component pages and not the parent page? One of our category pages is not ranking, instead our component page is ranking for important queries. Is this a bug or something else? So one, if you have view all pages and you're pointing, you're letting Google know that that is the view all page, generally we will rank the view all page. There's no reason we should be pointing to the page, component pages. On few cases I can think of is one, if it's pretty new and we haven't completely taken all the information properly, that could be one of the reasons. Apart from that, maybe it could just be once in a while. It could simply be that we haven't properly tagged the URL pages canonical, and we just found the component page to be more relevant to that particular query. But ideally, we will generally show the view all page when users are searching for, because that's a better user experience for users.
Yeah, one thing, Ramesh, make sure that your canonical is appropriate. From the paginated pages to the view all pages, you have set up the canonical appropriately. That is one important thing. Sometimes what also happens is these view all pages, they may be too heavy, because it is a view all page. And if, for example, if it's a product listing page, category page, then you may have, like, say, for example, 2,000 products listed, and it may become very, very bulky and very slow to load and stuff like that. So even in those cases, maybe Googlebot may not be able to crawl it appropriately. So those kind of problems may also happen. So it is important to make sure that these pages load fast enough. So optimization on your view all page is a good idea.
All right, so for this particular case, it's like we have pointing page to page canonical, not something like pointing to one view all is not the case here. And the thing is like,
just a moment, Ramesh, I think I hear
No,
some
there's some
background.
disturbance.
There is some background. Okay. So go ahead.
yeah, all right. So thing is like this page has this one-to-one kind of canonical. It's pointing to the self, and the thing is like it's not very heavy kind of thing. It's, you can say, the listing page of the news listing one, and we have this, you can say, 10 listing for the one page itself, not more than that. So I don't think so. That is something that the load-wise kind of thing. Also try to fetch it with a Google thing, and it is showing fairly fine. I mean the rendering-wise as well. I mean the kind of status-wise as well. So, but the thing is like it's really important for us to get rank for our main page instead of the content page. Basically, we are highlighting.
Could you come again? I missed your last part.
So yeah, for us it's like important to get ranked for these particular phrases. Like I mean, we're just talking about this particular query. It's India news. If you're searching for that particular thing, it's like when Google is picking that page 2 instead of page 1. So interlinking wise also, I mean, all the places we are linking to are the main page, not the component pages. But still, I mean, I'm just getting this kind of thing like why we are not linking to this page, but still is getting ranked on Google. Just ignoring our parent page. That is the important one for us as well as for the Google that we are showing to the user and to the bot as well. So, I mean, for the linking as well, I mean, getting the backlinks as well from the external sources. But I mean, still we are not ranking for that page, but for the other page. So if you can please look at that one, and the India news is the keyword. So
Hold on. So if I got your question right from whatever I could hear, basically you have a view all page and then the paginated pages, and if you see your view all page has many more backlinks than you are comparing backlinks to your paginated pages, individual pages, right? But even then, in one of these cases, the one of the paginated pages is ranking and not the view all page. Did I get that right?
yes, it is correct. But in this case, particularly, this is a different website, not the view all kind of thing. This one is like the we have this page to page canonical, not something like we are pointing from a paginated page to the parent, but it has the one to one kind of canonical. It is pointing to the self canonical wise as well.
So
So
basically, it means you have paginated pages,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and no, there is no view all page.
No, for this site, no.
Okay, then what's your problem?
No, I think like one page is ranking. Is that right?
Yeah.
So
So do you have same content on page 1 and page 2?
no. So it's page one, page two, page three have are paginated and have rel prefs and rel next to point to each page. So we have
Right.
three component pages. And when someone's searching for an article, we are showing the middle page instead of the first or the third page. Honestly, this could simply be that page two we find for those queries we find that more relevant, but there's no reason why we should show. Thing is, for all these three pages you'll still have the same article title. It's just that when user visits that page, he'll come to the middle of the article. Obviously, that's not the best user experience, but there can be some cases where that could be relevant, which is why we are probably showing that. But again, if someone's searching simply for the article, ideally we'd like to show the component page number one. But again, so since these are paginated, it's just that sometimes Google's taking a decision and thinks the page two is more relevant for that particular query.
Yeah, so I think what you can also do is analyze the queries for which this is ranking and see the keywords and stuff. Do they appear more on page 2 than page 1 for whatever queries this is ranking, right? So probably I think Google is thinking that the content in page 2 is more relevant to users' query, what they're searching for, right? So I really don't know what kind of content you have on these pages, right? Taking a look at it may give a good idea. So you can also post this in the forums, basically. But just otherwise, thinking top of my head, it may be possible that, so for example, if somebody is doing a exact match, right, something in quotes, and then that phrase appears on page 2, then we would definitely show page 2 and not page 1. Right, because we want to show the user what that person is looking for, and that appears on page 2. So maybe for some other keywords as well, your page 2 is much more relevant than your page 1 for that particular query that the user is searching for, and that may be the reason why they are seeing page 2, right? So digging a little bit into this probably should give you a sense of why that is happening.
Yeah, but again, to answer overall, there's no reason why we'll always select page one whenever someone's searching for that article. There is, page the other component pages also can show up in search results, depending upon the query.
Okay, the queries is okay, but the query is very generic thing. Basically, it's a listing page, not the article page, and the query is India news. So it's like we have this category itself in our home page itself. We are just linking it from the main navigation. Plus, we have this footer thing. But the thing is, like, if I'm going for this India news, that is very generic kind of thing. So I'm just most probably showing to my user basically my listing page, not my some of the component page. So that's the
They're not article pages, is there?
no, it's a listing page.
Okay. So it's a listing page divided into number of pages.
Yes, yes.
Okay, then it makes perfect sense to rank any of those pages which is the most relevant to that person's query, isn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, when with the first page we are showing the latest news, but as compared to my going to the second page, it might be like not the latest one. So that might be like people seeing to my that second page, they might not get the latest kind of news. That we might be losing some of the pages over there. So that's the case.
Yeah, by the way, obviously Google can make mistakes also, just so you know. So it could simply be a case of finding better signals for the page on the second page, which is why we're ranking that. Uh, so you can generally just take a cursory glance at all the kind of links that you're getting and see if there's anything negative happening on page one, and just general basic SEO stuff.
So Ashish, in such case, when one product listing page is ranking higher than the article page, should we focus on on-page things like what the content is on page, or external backlinks also matter in search engine decide which pages to show in ranking?
So in the case that Ramesh mentioned, all the other pages are also listings. It's just listings of different articles or news or whatever. So it's just that there are like say 100 listings and they're split into 40, 40 and 30. Sorry, 40, 30, 30. And they let Google know that all of these are lists of the same. All of these are a list of news articles, something like that. So we are not deciding between an article page or a product page. Rather, Google sees that all of these three pages contain lists of news, and when someone searches for say India news, we're just showing one of those three pages. And in Google's perspective, all these three pages contain a list of articles. We just someone when someone's searching for news articles, it just happens that Google is showing the second page because we just think that's more relevant. It could simply be because that page has the most not necessarily page rank, but generally most relevant for that generic query. We just feel that the second component page is the most relevant. This could be due to links, but this could be due to other factors like general content on that particular page when it comes to India news and general say external links to that particular page recommended by users or other websites and stuff like that. So to answer your question, in this particular case, we're not deciding between an article and a product listing. But in case we are deciding when someone searches for some content which is present in an article in between two articles, obviously the content in the article is the king. So we try and rank the most relevant content because that's what the users are looking for. And obviously one of the signals that we consider is links, because links give us a decent idea of what other websites or other users think about that particular content. So links is something, it's definitely something Google looks at, and you should if someone's linking to your website, that's obviously a good thing. And when you do stuff like when you advertise your site or when you increase engagement for your site through social media and other platforms, if you get backlinks as a result of that, that's totally fine. But beyond that, I think your focus should always be on the content of that article. Looking at links and generally increasing engagement and everything is good, and it will definitely help you, but the most important and the most relevant thing is the content on that particular article. Does it make sense? So what I'm saying is that links and engagement and all these things are fine. They'll help you, or they'll help with ranking. When someone looks at when someone finds your content and when they link back to your site, that definitely will help with ranking. But the most important thing is content, because we try to serve the most relevant content to our users. So like once your content and the main part of your site is you're satisfied with that, then you can start looking at the other avenues of increasing engagement and getting more traffic.
Means first, we need to focus on content.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, so are we saying here that creating a view all page is a good would be a better strategy generally speaking, and so that you have got, say, if you've got 100 listings, and instead of dividing them 40, 30, 30, you also have a view all page, and therefore you have all your canonicals on that 100 listing page. Therefore, that page would generally get much more ranking and stuff. Are we saying?
Yeah, generally Google recommends view all pages. It's just that when you have a lot of content on view all pages, many people, for many sites, it may not load fast enough, and that leads to bad user experience. So if you can make that a non-issue for your website, make it so that above the fold content loads immediately, and users don't experience any lag or any issues with your page, all page, then that's definitely.
Yeah. And when you say that you tell Google that this is a view all page, it's only through canonicals, or is there any other mechanism to tell Google that it's a view all page?
So generally, yes, it is the canonical. right? Generally, we'll try to understand by ourselves, even if you will do that, right? Because we will see, okay, the content on this page matches these pages. But it's a good practice to do a canonical, and then yeah, that's the way how you tell Google that this is canonical.
Sure.
Actually, there is one way to look at URL pages. Let me just- So if I'm not wrong, you can, yeah, I think canonical, sorry, yeah, what Syed said is right. Canonical is the only way to let us know that this is a URL page. I was just looking if there was other tags that you can use to let Google know that there's a URL page, but canonical is the way to go. So, but the thing is, even if you do have a URL page, if you have listings in separated pages, you should definitely use rel prev and rel next to let Google know that these are paginated pages. Of course, even if you don't, we'll try and understand. But ideally, like it's something that you can control, and it's good if you do it. Okay, let's take the next question. How important is it to show what users are looking for in sidebar and related content in main section? Will it make any difference with how Google treats these pages when showing data in sidebar and not in main content? Does Google treat it as boilerplate? Honestly, it depends, right? So thing is, sometimes when someone's searching for you have an article on Lamborghini cars, right? Lamborghini cars in Hyderabad, you have an article on that, and it's about pictures of spotted Lamborghini cars, and then you have content around that. And when someone's searching for spotting Murcielago Lamborghini in Hyderabad, and if the article contains that content but the sidebar contains about information about Ferrari or other cars, obviously in that context the main content is obviously more important. On the other hand, if someone's looking for the content in the sidebar or relevant links on the sidebar, then that is important. So it's not like we don't obviously the content in the main article will be treated differently from the content in the sidebar. But when it comes to showing in search or when it comes to showing relevant pages for users queries, we'll obviously, if the sidebar content is more useful, we'll pick that up and show that to users, right? It is treated differently, but it all depends on relevancy, right? How relevant it is to the user's query. So it's not you should you shouldn't decide like because Google looks at the main article a lot, we can stuff keywords there, but we should keep the sidebar clean. It's nothing like that. We look at all content. It's treated differently as per the relevancy for that particular query.
But what is most likely that we will rank is for the relevance factor, what we look at is the main content, right? So if there is an article which talks about a certain topic, and then on your website that similar thing is mentioned somewhere on a page, on a sidebar, with some other topic as a main content, then we will most likely rank the page which is dedicated to that topic and have that subject in the main content.
That makes sense because that's what is most useful for the user, right? Again, like what's most relevant and what's most useful for the user. So sidebar is generally, it gives a good experience for your users because they look at an article and then they find relevant links to other articles which may interest them. So it's a good user experience. And for Google also, we can generally look at an article and we look at the links and we crawl them and we find new articles. And if the new article is more relevant, we are more likely to serve that query. But again, it's honestly, like rather than thinking about how Google looks at sidebar content, how Google looks at footers or main content, it's better to look at it from a user's perspective, like what is useful for them, how it makes more sense for them, because they are the ones who are visiting your site. And even if Google doesn't you can get more engagement from users if they like your website, right? Even if they don't search on Google, there's a good chance they'll get back to your site if they like what they see. Okay, we actually have a very little time, and we have about 4 questions. Let's try and quickly cover them. Hopefully we don't get any new ones. Okay, getting content through JavaScript in main content affects page rankings. If we are doing certain live events and updating content with dynamic content from JavaScript, how does Google see it? We have static HTML content as well as dynamic content on the same page. Can you elaborate a little bit? I'm not sure I got that properly, Ramesh.
I think what you're saying is basically you have a page where you have static content, and then a section of that page updates dynamically based on JavaScript. Probably you're using Ajax, right? And how Google treats those pages. So I think for these kind of pages, it is important for you to allow us to crawl its JavaScript and CSS, right? Previously, the problem was we were not able to crawl Ajax-related pages unless you made them available to search explicitly by using certain things, right? But now we are capable of rendering a page just as it is rendered in a browser using CSS, JavaScript, and then fetch related content and see that as a user sees it, right? So we are much more efficient in rendering a page and then understanding it with all the content that may load for a user. So all you have to do, I think, what you need to focus on is making the related resources available for crawler.
Okay.
We have another question. What do I do if? Okay.
Ashish, I have actually one question. So when you are done with all these questions, please give me a chance.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, Ashish, actually in desktop website earlier I had mobile folder with the M slash.
Okay.
Then after some time we decided to launch M dot site for mobile. Now the problem is coming that in desktop we have launched HTTPS and redirected HTTP to HTTPS
Okay.
to Google bot. Now the thing is that in mobile, how is it if I redirect mobile browser from HTTP to HTTP, from HTTP to mobile folder, then from mobile folder to HTTPS, then from HTTPS to M dot? There will be too many redirects for mobile browser. What will you suggest? From HTTP direct to I should redirect mobile browser to, mobile crawler from HTTP direct to M dot, or HTTP to HTTPS to older folder and then from to new folder?
Okay. One thing I'll suggest is since you have upgraded to have a SSL certificate on desktop, please do the same for mobile also. That's the number one recommendation I have. Number two is try and maintain redirects just between the HTTPS versions because it makes it simple for both your users and for Google. And as long as you have the rel alternate tags between your HTTPS desktop version and then your HTTPS mobile version, then it's pretty simple for Google to understand that this is the mobile version of this HTTPS desktop page. And like if you still have content just in your mobile folder, I'd suggest like just porting that content to your m dot subdomain and completely removing the redirects through your folder. Like just put the redirects between your mobile site and your desktop site and have HTTPS on your mobile website. Okay, I think we lost Divakar. Neeraj, but we are over time, so we'll just take the last question from Divakar and then close it. How do I manage transition between a new mobile site and an old desktop site which have different URL structures? So, have you already made the new mobile website?
Yes, we have made the new mobile website. It is live. We have put the canonicals as far as possible. However, as of now, we have put the M dot site under robots. So we are not indexing it explicitly.
Okay. One, if you have an M dot site, then like you said, having rel canonicals and rel alternates is a good idea, even if it has different URL structures. I mean, that's the reason you're going for a different mobile site, right? As long as the canonicals are mentioned properly, it's fine. Because if the canonicals are not mentioned properly and the redirects are, there are wrong redirects happening. Like for instance, say you have example.com and then you have m.example.com, but if the example.com slash article 1 is also redirecting to m.example.com instead of redirecting to m.example.com slash article 1, then that is again not acceptable because it's a faulty redirect, and we don't like, because it gives a bad experience to the user. We will not rank your site in mobile as high as we should. So as long as you have a redirect set up properly, or instead of redirects you have canonical tags set up properly, this that should be good enough. Even if the URL structure is different between desktop and mobile, that's generally good enough.
And as I said, currently, since our desktop is not revamped and we may not have a one-to-one mapping on canonicals, so I put the m dot site currently in robots. Should you think it's a good practice to do?
I would say try and have the canonicals, or even if you don't have canonicals, try and have at least the redirect set up properly as soon as you can, because for your mobile users it's not a good experience to view the desktop site, because the viewport won't be set properly. They can't. They have to scroll horizontally. It's a bad user experience, and we have a separate mobile ranking for websites that are not optimized for mobile. We may not rank them as high as as they're ranking on desktop. So it's not good for the users, and it's not good for your metrics and your general site traffic. So as soon as you can, try and either redirect or set up correct canonicals to your mobile version.
So I've got all the redirects already set up. So now I can go out of the robots mode and I can actually submit the
Yeah,
Google for indexing.
yeah, definitely. And yeah, so just also for your mobile version, if you have any CSS or JavaScript that helps your site be show up properly on mobile, please unblock those CSS or JavaScripts from robots also. Make sure we are able to crawl all CSS and JavaScript files too.
Sure, sure.
So Neeraj, coming back to your question,
Yeah.
so you were asking about mobile website, right?
Hmm. Actually, Ashish, some websites are redirecting a mobile crawler from HTTP direct to m dot. Some are some are redirecting HTTP to HTTPS desktop, then from there HTTPS to m dot. My problem is that my HTTPS page started coming up in mobile search because I am redirecting from HTTP to m dot,
Okay.
and to desktop I am redirecting from HTTP to HTTPS. So what is the best way to deal mobile crawler for the website that has migrated from HTTP to HTTPS?
So one, on your desktop, you will obviously be redirecting non-HTTPS URLs to HTTPS. When it comes to mobile, what I'm suggesting is one, have HTTPS for mobile version 2. Like even for your m dot site, please have HTTPS.
Hmm.
But till you do that, it's okay to redirect your HTTPS versions to mobile. So you have corresponding pages from HTTPS to the m dot versions, right?
Right.
Yeah, so you can redirect that, or if you don't want to do redirects, you can simply use rel tags to let Google know that you know on mobile, this is your this is the corresponding canonical page on desktop, and on desktop you will say this is the corresponding alternate mobile website. So if you let us know that, even there we can directly in search, you'll get the m dot version instead of HTTP or HTTPS versions of your desktop. But like my number one recommendation is to have HTTPS on mobile and just do redirects between your HTTPS desktop and your HTTPS m dot version.
So that then the redirection will be HTTP to HTTPS, from HTTPS to m dot HTTPS. Two redirects.
Ideally, because all the content is already present on HTTPS, you shouldn't need to redirect from HTTP to HTTPS.
Hmm.
So that redirects don't need to happen. Like when a user is searching on gets your URL on mobile, he doesn't need to see the first redirect. And when it comes to mobile search, we use this thing called skip redirect. So as long as we already know that this is the mobile version of a particular page, we'll directly provide that URL. So there doesn't need to be a redirect. We'll directly show them the mobile version, as long as we know that this is the mobile version of this desktop page.
But Ashish, this is what I am doing. Still in mobile search, my home page is coming with HTTPS www. I don't know why. I am redirecting mobile crawler from HTTP direct to m dot,
Okay. So
and I
can
am
you
using
please send
Canonical also.
so we can take a closer look, because
Sure.
speaking here it's getting harder.
Sure, Ashish, I will send you.
Or even in our community is also fine. I can.
I would try to post that question in community.
Thanks, guys. Sorry, Viber, we just joined, but we're already like 10 minutes over time. So see you next month, I guess. Right.
Yeah,
Bye
have a good
guys.
time.
Thanks for joining. See you
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye
bye.
bye.